The format for this meeting is a 10-minute speaker, our secretary's announcements, a coffee and snack break, and our main speaker. Our first speaker for tonight is Mark.
My name is Mark, and I'm an alcoholic. Let's see. My sobriety date is August 29, 2022. I have a sponsor. He has a sponsor. I'm still trying to figure out which group I go to as my home group. I have a couple different clubs I go to. One's in San Pedro, one is here in Hermosa, and I go to a lot of different meetings at both clubs, and I love each and every one of them, so I guess the home group is the one I'm in at the time. I never saw my uncle drink. I'm going to try to go back to the beginning. I guess this would be before the beginning. But he was an alcoholic from all the stories I've been told. His father, my grandfather, was an alcoholic, as I understand it. He ended up getting dry, getting sober. He claims he's an atheist. Sometimes he says stuff just for the effect, so I don't even know if I believe him. But I always thought that he probably came into the room and saw God and just left, probably talking shit on the way out. He had an issue with his heart a couple weeks ago. Actually, it's probably been a couple months now. And somehow we got to talking to AA, and he told me, I asked him, I said, because he claimed that if he ever got the shit, which I guess meant cancer or some terminal illness, that he would go back to drinking and using. But like I said, he says stuff for shock value. So in the hospital, we're getting real now, right? Because he's 80-some years old, and he's got to get another stent in his heart. And I asked him if he meant that. And he said no, he didn't mean that. And somehow that led into AA. And he told me, now that we're being real and serious, that they actually threw him out. And which is just as believable as him walking out over God. So it kind of makes me feel sad when I think about it, because the life that I've been given by working these 12 steps, God disciplined me out there in my disease for 20-some years. And I was born alcoholic. I've come to realize that recently, because way before I took my first drink, I was thinking, talking, and acting alcoholically. And in these past 10 months, I still have alcoholic thoughts. But fortunately, through the gift of my sponsor and working the 12 steps, I can identify them now and kind of discard them before I think or act on them too long. Doing my inventory, I didn't even know what I was doing when I started it. I was taking direction from my sponsor, writing where he told me to write and thinking how he told me to think. And it wasn't until I got to the end I realized I was doing it, and then I was done. And to get to know me through the fourth step was just, I can't even, I'm trying to describe something right now that I can't even put into words. The whole time, it wasn't even alcohol. It was Mark. Fear and anger, and fear of being angry and angry over being scared. That's it. That pretty much was me. And the alcohol had little to nothing to do with it. But my disease, it is a progressive disease, and it was progressing pretty quickly towards the end. I remember going to events with friends, and we'd get, by the middle of the day, third or fourth hours, we'd get a round of beer. And after a while, I couldn't find my beer. I didn't know where I put it. And I knew we just bought beers because I looked at the guy next to me, and he's taking about this much off of his, and he's taking about that much off of his. And I'm asking, where'd I put my beer? And they're looking at me like, dude, you drank it. It's gone. And I'd be passed out on the car ride home because I was a blackout drinker. And it was at that point that I was drinking and I didn't even want to drink. I don't know if anyone else can relate to that. But I knew it would be a miracle when I was drinking if at the end of the night I didn't end up in trouble, or was somebody pissed off at me, or if I wasn't going to wake up with the bottom drawer of clothes opened up and all the clothes smelling like piss, blaming it on the dog. Thank God that dog couldn't hear very well. The friendships I've made in this program are just real friendships. I was a tornado. I was going through, and I was just ripping through my life, and everybody was pretty much gone by the end. My family had separated. My sons weren't really talking to me, each one to some extent. My stepdaughter was already grown and she had a boyfriend in life, so she didn't really have any time or need for me at that point anyway. But I do love my stepdaughter. I met her when she was 1 year old. My separated wife, which is now my ex-wife, I drove her car here today. I mean, if you would have told me that shit 2-3 years ago, I wouldn't have even. The first thing we did together was I gave her a ride to the airport. And that was mind-blowing stuff for me, just to sit next to that woman for 15 minutes, totally at peace. Then all of a sudden, I'm working 3-hour shifts at the snack bar at the high school with this woman. And now she lets me use her car. Only for AA, though. Which is fine. You know, before in this situation, that thing would be parked at Santa Anita or Dodger Stadium or the shortstop at the bottom of the hill or wherever. And I don't blame her for everything she did. And it's at this point now she's remarried, and I pray for her and her husband, especially her husband. Because I'm good now. I don't want no U-turns, you know. I'm over it, like, for real. And I got a little something that I've connected with, and it's good to be going after the right woman for the right reasons, the right way, because God's speaking me through this. God has disciplined me now through other people, and I can recognize that. And you know, this woman, she didn't realize I only had a few months when I went to the club at first. So she was already kind of letting me know, and I think then she realized, hey, Mark's only got a few months. And she's like, because she's got like 6 years, and she had no idea. And that's only because my sponsor's the bomb, and I've been working the steps like sick. I know because I could feel it. I could feel it. I say the set-aside prayer, that's my go-to prayer these days, and I started to say it before the meeting started, and then after I said it, already my head's filling up again. I'm like, shit, I better wait till right before I go up there to say the set-aside prayer. I'll wrap it up with this. My sons, I have my sons back in my life, and they were always in my life because they can't fend for themselves quite yet, but that day was coming soon. And my oldest son moved to Denver. He's working at United Airlines. He's actually training to become a pilot. And my oldest son, he was the one I coached the most, and he didn't want Dad anywhere near the dugout. I mean, probably if I couldn't shut up, he'd rather not even have me at the field at the end of my drinking. And didn't really share much. He held a lot of shit in. He might be like me too. Hopefully we never find out. But one thing he did start doing was smoking pot. Towards the end of high school, his senior year, he was smoking a lot of pot. He went to Denver. I went to visit him, and he didn't really feel motivated to pick his dad up, who I hadn't seen for a few months from the airport. So I took the train, and I showed up at the apartment, and then he was kind of coming to, I guess, the marijuana equivalent of coming to. And I always wanted to get him in a meeting because he was starting to see Dad changing, right? And he knew I was going to AA, but he don't know about AA like most people out there don't. And I wanted to take him to a meeting, but I didn't want it to be my idea. I wanted it to just kind of happen, you know. And I went out there on Christmas Eve. Mind you, I was supposed to go to Denver from the 21st to the 24th, back in time for Christmas because of whatever with the airlines. I didn't get out there till Christmas Eve, so he was working at the time. I found a club out there because that's what I was excited to do when I got to Denver, was find the AA club. And they told me the next day, Christmas Day, we're going to have a potluck. There's going to be chicken and turkey and ham and all that stuff. And then so we wake up the next morning, it's Christmas Day, and it's me and my son, his first Christmas away from home. And I didn't have a meal planned, you know. So I told him I know a place where we can go have a meal. And we went there. We got there about 2 o'clock. I remember there was a meeting that started at 2 o'clock. And right away he's... I could see his eyes. He's looking at all the stuff hanging off the walls and stuff. And then we shared. There was only like 6 of us there. And we shared, and I shared as well. And I think that's when he realized, oh, this is how Dad's doing. This is what's going on. So 2 months later, I went back out there in February. And I meant to talk to him about smoking pot. Because I've done it, and I'm trying at this point to let him kind of grow through it. And I meant a calendar reminder on my phone. to talk to him about it. So I land. I'm planning on taking the train to his apartment. As soon as I hit the runway, I get a text from him. I'm on my way to pick you up. It's like 8:30 local time. Like, I would have lost that bet. So we drive home. He makes breakfast. We're driving out to the mountains. He's got his dog in the back, an Australian husky or something. I don't even know this dog existed, but it's a really bitchin' dog. And before that reminder popped up, he started talking about it. And I know that's a result of me taking him to that meeting. He told me he hadn't smoked for a week. He had kicked the green hoe. Because these kids, they got names for everything, man. And I did not go to a meeting that weekend because all I did was listen and share and pray with my son. I don't know how I could leave it off any better than that. So thank you for being here and listening, Mark Alcoholic.
Change the things I can and the wisdom to know the difference. That works? Okay. Now, our main speaker will share his experience, strength, and hope with us. Please join me in welcoming Paul.
Hey, thanks a lot. I'm Paul Burchett. I'm an alcoholic who also suffers from outside voice. So if the microphones go down, I won't have a problem. So anyway, the reading glasses were for me. But yeah, if I had $1 for every time my wife implored me to talk softer, yeah, I could be up on the hill. But, you know, the crazy thing is, you know, after 13 months in the program, you wouldn't think that the 12 steps would help me talk softer. But I can't, you know, she used to tell me all the time, the neighbors can hear you. Talk softer. In the last 13 months, I can't remember the last time she asked me to talk softer. Anyhow, yeah, my sobriety date, I'm a little anxious, a little too much. My sobriety date is June 8th, so today is my 13-month anniversary. Sponsor Bud and my home group. I'll call my home group Thursday morning. It's the 9:30 morning meetings in Hermosa Beach. But yeah, Thursday was my first one there. I want to just thank everybody that puts on the meeting, my family that came here to support me, my good friend that came here to support me. I wouldn't be here without any and all of you. So that's important to me. You know, I am a little newer in the program, so I don't know if my message is going to best be geared to those who are younger in the program, or, you know, just getting back, or, you know, maybe I'll say something different that the people that have been around for a while, maybe they haven't heard it that way before. You know, when I first got asked by Chris to come and speak at this meeting, I was like, 45? Are you don't want me to start me out with the 10? Because I'm used to doing, you know, 1 minute shares, 3 minute shares. Let's be concise. Let's fit as much in as we can. Let's say as much as we can in a short amount of time. 45 minutes just seemed incredibly daunting to me. I don't know. Is there anybody else here that felt like 45 minutes is way too long to have to talk for a first time? Right? So, you know, the cool thing is, you know, if I don't focus on the 45 minutes, if I just think about one topic here, one topic there, and I talk for just a couple minutes on this and a couple minutes on that, all of a sudden 45 minutes is over. If you're lucky, maybe 37 minutes is over. But, you know, it's just like the program of AA, right? If you think about never drinking again, and how can I never drink again? I delayed coming into this program because I held on to, you know, one of these days I'm just going to get it and I'll be able to, you know, drink like a gentleman. I'll be able to just have a little bit here, a little bit there, and I won't go overboard, and I won't drink until it's gone. And if you've left some wine in your glass, I can't figure out why, and I'm going to finish that for you. But, you know, if you just, you know, one day at a time in the program, 1 minute, 1 hour, whatever it takes, and then before you know it, you've got 13 months, you've got 13 years, you've got whatever it is. So anyway, you I'll start from when I was younger. I don't know how much, I didn't really prepare to talk about, my dad and who raised me and all that stuff. My baseball coach father, it was great because he was a good dad in that he cared and he wanted to be there for me. But man, I can remember a time when I was 12 years old and we were all taking grounders at shortstop, and it was my turn to field that grounder, and he hit a pop fly into medium left field. And I turned around and I kind of lollygagged. And right at that moment, I heard a baseball whiz by my ear. My dad picked up a ball and threw it hard. My dad is a phenomenal athlete. Should have been D1. The guy's like freaking Ken Griffey Jr. He's like 6'2", lean. I've seen him play. Dude roped. But he had a little bit of an anger issue, I think. Probably a couple months ago, there was a daily reflection regarding how we've witnessed the terrible effects of alcohol, and all the terrible things that we've seen couldn't stop us from drinking. And I had something terrible happened in my life, and it was alcohol related, and I was probably 13 at the time, and it wasn't enough to keep me from drinking. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. Candy Lightner was the person that started Mothers Against Drunk Drivers. She had two beautiful twin girls, Carrie and Serena. There was a drunk driver who had probably had 9 or 10 drunk driving incidents, and he was out on his own recognizance because in the 70s, drunk driving wasn't that big of a deal. And she was, I don't know if she was on her way to or on her way home from a softball game, and he swerved and he hit her, and she flew, they said 60 feet in the air, and probably cracked her skull open pretty good. Huge funeral, super impactful, 400 people at this funeral. And for whatever reason, that still wasn't enough to make me not pick up that first drink when I was probably 15 or so. So it's amazing what you can see, and the alcohol can still win. Brief drinking career. I drank from the time that I was 15 or so. I probably started smoking pot before that. And I didn't stop until I was 55. So if you're, I'll say this real quick. If you're young in this crowd and you've got a chance to get this now, and you don't have to go through 40 years of amends and, all that stuff, step 4, step 8, step 9, save yourself some hassle. Save yourself some problems, right? Get it today. So, I learned a lesson on my first drinking event. I think it was a 6-pack of Lowenbrow, a little party at Kim Short's house, and, powered through that 6-pack of Lowenbrow. And I learned at the end of the night that when you eat mac and cheese, you don't chew it. Because it was yellow. It was no longer orange, but it was whole. So anyway, I was pretty regular, I got after it. I will say I got after it, and I was, I like to say that I was, kind of a normal guy, going through college stuff, but I probably was harder than most. I was on a bad path from the start, but, it feels like, man, I don't want to recall too many drinking things. Everybody's got stories, right? But when I met my wife in 1998 at Chillers, having cocktails, things were good, and we went out. We went to sushi after that, and I treated her friends to sushi, and got in with a great crowd right away. And they were like, "Yeah, you should see him again for sure." And and my wife and I, it seems like all of our vacations were, Paso Robles, going down to Cabo and drinking tequila, buying lots of great tequila and bringing it back like it was, contraband, all wrapped up in cardboard so it wouldn't break in the suitcases. But even though I had, bad instances, I felt like if I could have kept it at that, if it would have just stayed in that lane, I probably wouldn't be here tonight. But it didn't stay in that lane. Progressive, right? So, I think I want to say the beginning of the end. I met my good friend Brent, USC football, message boards, followed recruiting and got all into USC football games. And we started getting together for USC basketball games, USC football games. He'd come over. We'd go to the home games. We'd tailgate. We'd go to the away games. And then about a month after I got my last job, that was December of 2006. So the 2007 Rose Bowl came around, and I had become infamous or famous or whatever you want to call it for bringing what came to be known as the jug of justice. So it was always really, I always had really, great high-end alcohol, and I wanted to have it themed. If we were playing Hawaii, I would bring like really good Mai Tais and, whatever. I would always have a theme for the cocktails, and, it was, everything had to go. And it was, come on, let's go. And that was my style of drinking. I can't say that I did get angry while drinking, and I have snap issues with my anger, but I didn't drink out of depression. I didn't drink out of anger, but man, if I could take it to the next level, if things were good, if I felt invincible, we were going to the next, let's go. So that's I'm toning it way down. That's controlling the outside voice. But, so this 2007 Rose Bowl, I took a big, instead of one this big, I had like a 5-gallon jug of justice and just strong drinks and all these people that were from my past. And I was the one holding it. So I'd pour it for everybody, and then I'd take some for myself. I'd pour for everybody, and man, this is good, and I can just go, go, go. So we started to make our way to the game, and I think I passed out in the bushes or started puking in the bushes. Brent, finally realized that he had left me behind, and he looks back and he's like, "Oh man, this guy's struggling." And I think maybe he found me when I was already in the ambulance. So yeah, they were caring for me in the ambulance. They had an IV in my arm. I found out later at the hospital that after I'd puked everything out of my system, I was still being blood tested at a 0.29. So I'd gotten after it pretty good. So Brent, lucky, I'm glad he did. He went to the game. He's like, "Yeah, you know what? You're going to be okay. I know the hospital you're going to. I got tickets to the game. It's the Rose Bowl, dude." I wasn't there for that conversation, but I know that's how it went. So he went to the game. Came and picked me up from the hospital afterwards. I guess they had processed me, and I was on the gurney with a bunch of IVs in my arm, and the nurse had just said, "You might have a problem. You might want to get into a program. You might want to take a look at what's going on in your life." I'm like, "Yeah, right, sure, whatever." Brent got there. She walked away. He rips the IVs out of my arm. "Let's go, dude." And so I'm bleeding. So, luckily, even though I did end up missing the next day of work with food poisoning, of course, I didn't get fired from that job. And the job, so it was a commercial real estate job. And I started out just as a financial analyst. After a few years, I got to, I was trusted enough where they had me travel in the country, meeting brokers from all over the country, going to conventions. And so what that job was about was going and making new relationships and getting people, I'd buy them drinks, and I had company money to go, "Hey, here's a card, go take them out, get them loaded, have fun, make sure the next deal that they want to sell comes to us." And so I was encouraged in my job to go drink with other people in the industry. And that, that kind of just, that's progressive. So that lasted about 13 years, and things were good, and moved up through the company. Towards the end, the guy that was my direct boss, I'd become kind of the right-hand man for the CEO. Well, there's a bigger story, but anyway, he got forced out of the company. He was away hiking the John Muir trails with his daughter, and they contacted him and said, "Yeah, you're no longer needed here. Don't come back into the office." This is after 28 years with the company. So they, summarily fired him without a face-to-face. Really trashy. And the crazy thing is, that company was fantastic. There were people there with 13, 16, 25, 35 years of service. And the way they got rid of him, well, I didn't see the writing on the wall, apparently. Because I was next, I just didn't know it yet. And they called me that night and they said, "Hey, if Joe calls, don't take his calls, don't talk to him, because if you do, you could be next." And he had to sign something, confidentiality, where he didn't reach out to me for at least 6 months. So the new guy comes in and I'm like, hey, this is all I'm looking for here is an opportunity. All I want is, let's keep doing this. Let's get onto this next thing. And the crazy thing was, we were about to buy a new car for my wife. And I was looking at I was looking at like $1,000 a month lease payment. And I confided with the person that knew who the new CEO was. And I looked him in the eye and I was like, "Dude, it doesn't feel like maybe this is the time for me to get wrapped up into a big lease payment. Where are we going with this? Is this going to be good? Am I secure here?" He's like, "Yeah, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you?" Yeah, that guy was good at lying to people's faces. I found out later he did it again, and karma's gotten him, and I'm not going to gossip about that. But so anyway, my first interview or my first long talk with the new CEO was about 2 months after he started, and he put me on a 60-day, basically not suspension, but you're on probation for 60 days. Thank you very much. So I tried to work through it because he was like, "Hey, you're working on a couple things that you're the only one that knows anything about them. We think those deals are impossible to get done, and do your best." So one of the things that I had learned, even though I was a heavy drinker, I stopped putting it on the company card because I was that heavy of a drinker. I didn't want them to have a trace of how much I was drinking, and so I had taken people. I had traveled with some people that were under me to kind of get them some, hey, look, take them out, look at properties. This is how I do it. This is what we do. This is what I'm looking for. This is what these are the things that are good. These are the things that are bad. So I was, kind of training my understudies, and I had a convention in Orlando, and one of the people from our Dallas office and one of the people from our Atlanta office were like, "Hey, we're going to be out there too. Maybe we have dinner." They might have been wearing a wire. Because they said, "Hey, what do you think of Mark? We're not in the LA office much, and we're not around him much." Man, was I honest? Was I honest? I let them know exactly how I felt about Mark, and that's an amends that I think at some point I'd like to make, even though I feel strongly about what happened there, but I didn't need to go into so much detail about just how I felt about him. So the funny thing is, he didn't say anything to me. And it took a couple weeks in this deal that was up in Washington. He goes, "Man, that deal's never going to close. There's no way you're going to close that. You're not going to close it." And then I closed it. And I went to lunch, pretty happy, checked with everything. Everything's going through. He texts me while I'm at lunch. And he's like, "Hey, where you at?" I'm like, "Yeah," you told him. And he goes, "Come see me when you get back." So as soon as the money hit from escrow, he called me into his office and fired me. I was a little bitter. The nice thing was, so yes, good and bad here. I had, a lot of vacation time. I had some severance. They usually gave a pretty good severance for people that had been there for 13 years. And I was fixing up my house at the time. And this is September of 2019. And so I was acting as the GC. So I'm like, this is perfect. I'll just be the GC for the rest of the project. Come March, April, back into the swing of things, everything's cool. Well, March comes around in 2020, and all of a sudden everything's on lockdown. And I'd been through some real estate downturns, and with the lockdowns in real estate, you're going, well, how can a nail salon survive if they can't accept customers? I didn't factor in all the money that was going to be pumped into the economy, whatever. But I thought that there would be some great, distress situations coming out of that. But while I was locked down, I went from drinking, maybe 1.5 handles a week to all of a sudden I'm putting 2 handles a week in the recycle. And then it got to where it was 3 handles a week in the recycle. And my life was becoming completely unmanageable. And I didn't have a way out. So I just recently went through my powerless, when I first got into the program and Bud had me do my powerless over alcohol list, I had a decent list. So I've got powerless over alcohol. I was drinking 1.24 or 4.5 liters of vodka weekly. Knew I had a problem, found no way to moderate or stop. Every day it seemed like I was drinking earlier. Every night ended in a blackout. I'd realized probably 18 to 24 months before I got into the program that I had a problem, and I didn't want to give it up, but I wanted to find a way to be able to drink normal again-ish. So yeah, good luck, right? So I called my doctor and I got a prescription for naltrexone, and so it was kind of working. But I'd read also about, hey, if you stop cold turkey after, several years of drinking really heavy, you could end up in the morgue. You could have a heart attack. You could have a stroke. Things can go badly quickly for a real alcoholic that's been drinking for a long time. So, my doctor didn't have a problem with me having like a half a glass every night with my naltrexone. And my buddy called a few weeks later and he goes, hey man, how's the pills treating you? How are those coming along? And I'm like, man, I'm drinking right through them. He's like, stop taking the fucking pills then. So I drank right through the naltrexone. And then pretty soon my hands were shaking like leaves on a windy day, sweating profusely, even under slight strain. I'd take out the trash, I'd pull a few weeds, and I'm wiping sweat off my brow. I was in constant fear of a heart attack, and I felt like I could feel the damage that I was doing to my organs. It felt like pins and needles. I had pancreatitis. I could feel both of my kidneys. I felt like, is that my liver that's pulsing right now? And I hid this from my wife. She didn't know. Because there were times, if she wasn't home, I'd be like, and I had that pain. But if she was home, I put it down. So all these things I still couldn't stop. In social settings, I either avoided drinking or drank in excess. When traveling, I drank in excess even when I had important business the next morning. The effects of alcohol became noticeable while I was sober. Hands, brain trembled to start the day until I had my first drink. I became unemployable. I had no chance of getting a job at this point. I can't figure out how I can get back in. I can't go to an interview later in the day, and early in the day, my hands are shaking. If I did get my resume accepted, now I've got to go in an interview. I've got to go into the office, and I've got to fill out the paperwork in there. It looked like I had early onset Parkinson's. My handwriting was illegible at that point. It's much better now. Even though I've never had great handwriting, but it's much better now. I couldn't even comprehend trying to interview. Yeah, I avoided drinking at many family functions, but as soon as I got home, it was time to catch up. I drank alone all the time. I found myself isolating, largely in shame. I don't know if anybody identifies with any of these. I felt physically and mentally completely dependent on alcohol. I couldn't imagine drinking for not even one day. So I hear a lot of stories, right, that, oh yeah, I was drinking heavy and I quit for a week and I just couldn't stay quit, or I quit for a month or 2 months and I couldn't stay quit. I couldn't quit for 24 hours. You guys, whoever could quit for a week, I was shocked. That was amazing to me. But so I couldn't figure out how to do it for a 24-hour span, even with pills. So yeah, I just, I felt like I had a desire to change my drinking habits, but I had no physical power to affect those changes. Pretty solid display of being powerless over alcohol. And then this is how I finally came into the program. I was broken down. I knew I was going to die. And there were times where I felt like, I've had a pretty good run. If I have a heart attack right now, and this is it, I'm 55, I've traveled a lot, I've had some success, nobody expected me to get this far. Oh, well. But then, not intentionally maybe, or I don't know, maybe it's because I've got a good wife. She was my reason to live. I didn't want her to come home and find me dead. I didn't want her to freak out that here's her stiff husband dead after a heart attack because he couldn't stop drinking and he wasn't sharing with her how bad it was hurting him. And he knew that he was going to die. And maybe he didn't even care anymore. So on a Sunday night, with still tons of alcohol in the cabinet, I was buying my handles at Costco. I'd get the Kirkland France. I'd get them 2 to 6 at a time. I'd get the whole 6-pack. I'd have 3 lined up in the cabinet. I never was wanting for alcohol. I didn't, it was there. And, I wasn't abusive. I didn't yell at her. It's just, so, and, the bills were getting paid. So, and I didn't share with her how much pain I was in. So, this is probably okay. So on a Sunday night, excuse me, I gave him the flat stuff. I got the bubbly stuff. So if I get a little percolation, I told my wife, I said, look, I don't know how to stop. I'm going to die. I can either figure out a way to stop or it's not going to end well. I just know it. And so lucky for us, her sister, my sister-in-law, had been through a program, and her husband had also been through the program. He lived like over, I think, 21 months at the Beacon House. Man, that guy's So anyway, we all made plans to get in touch. On Wednesday morning that week, she said, "Hey, call Mark right now. He's getting ready to go do yard work, and if he does yard work for the whole day, he's not going to have his cell phone on him. And so you got to get in touch with him now." So I called him at like 8 o'clock in the morning. He picks up, we talk. He's got all these questions about what my plans were, how I'm going to be sober. What's your goal? Do you want to drink like a gentleman? What do you think you want to do? And I'm like, yeah, drink like a gentleman. That sounds good. That sounds good. He's got 22 years sober, right? And so he's like, okay, yeah. So, are you going to go to a meeting? Yeah, meeting sounds good. I had still like 3 handles in the cabinet. So, pretty soon I'm going to a meeting for sure. That's the right thing to do. Yeah. And then he goes, okay, well, I'll send you, you need to go to a meeting and I'll send you I'll send you the schedule. So he did text me the schedule right afterwards. And I think after we hung up, I think he either called or texted his wife, Jody, and said, hey, yeah, Paul, just talked to him. Yeah, it sounds like he's on his path. He's ready to go to a meeting. And, it looks good. I think she laid into him because he called me back a few minutes later and said, hey, do you want to go to a meeting right now? Yeah. And so, and I want to, so for anybody that wants to talk about, yes, it's attraction, not promotion. But if you've got somebody that's in the throes that you think they're ready to go to a meeting, take them to that meeting, take action. It's not, at that point, it's not just attraction. You've got to take action. So he said, hey, I'll be over in an hour and we'll go to a meeting today. And so we went to a meeting at Birch and, great meeting, great people. I love the shares that were going on there. I picked up the schedule. And, Hermosa's a little closer to my house. All the good things that go with that beach. Oh, and Birch was still wearing masks. And I'm sorry, that's not my thing. Whatever, but I don't want to. Let's not focus on that. So anyway, so he goes, okay, yeah, go to a meeting tomorrow, introduce yourself to everybody, tell them you're new, and they'll love you. That's all they want to hear. They want to hear that you're new and you're there and that you want to get better. And so as I walked up, my friend Nate, he was like, hey, how you doing? Don't recognize you. And I'm like, I told him, and he's like, your first meeting, your first time through AA. He said, dude. So he took me in, went into the meeting, had a good meeting. And after the meeting, let's see here. So yeah, several people welcome me, open arms. Alcoholics are great. And I'll say this. I know I felt welcome because I just read the text recently. This is what I texted him after that meeting. I think I found a home. At least 3 of the men had extended conversations with me in the parking lot, and 2 have sent me follow-up texts, one adding me to a daily morning prayer. Another person bought the big book for me and the 12 Steps, 12 Traditions book for me. I can't let them down. Yeah. I had the gift of desperation, right? And it was obvious. And I didn't know how I was going to get through those first few days. I will say this. I did still have some naltrexone left, and I was taking a half dose early on because the meetings got me through the morning and the thought of it, and the naltrexone kind of dulled me. I only stayed on that for about a week or 2 until I got through the first stages, and then I gave that up. And I started feeling better, right? And it's funny, Tom, your sponsor, who I think is not here necessarily, I don't know, I don't see him, but he had a share, and it was really intense. And he talked about, alleys and gutters and dumpsters, and he's like, I'm a real alcoholic. And I'm like, so after that list of powerlessness, I was like, maybe I'm not a real alcoholic. Yes. Yeah. Well, guess what? Yeah, my sponsor straightened me out on that. Thank you. Yeah, it didn't take long. The mind's a funny thing, right? It's a powerful drug. I didn't think I was a real alcoholic after just a week or 2 and hearing, some worse stories. I'm not that guy. Yeah. Oh, there he is. I heard that. But I was warned that, how much time do I have left?
15 minutes.
Okay. So you're lucky. I'll try to keep this brief because I was warned that, talking about your higher power, that's kind of something that's between you and that's your thing. But, the things that got me through this program, 6 of the steps mention either God, higher power, or him. 2 of the first 3 are higher power and God, and creating a relationship with your higher power. And I'm not saying what your higher power has to be. I have heard a good share that, it can be anything from, the waves to the trees to the group is a good one, to the doorknob. And somebody shared that, if you pick the doorknob, be careful because that's going to turn on you. So, another great share that I heard recently was somebody that had spent a lot of his life traveling the world and getting into a lot of different cultures. And one of the things that struck me and struck him was that every culture, independent of having, a Bible story, of this story, of that story, they all had higher power stories. They all had a greater meaning story. And, having meaning in your life, mine was my wife and not dying. And then getting back on my feet and, contributing to the house and doing what I'm supposed to do as her husband. Those were the meanings that I latched on to. Let's see here. So, for me, I'll be honest, I find my meaning in the creator God of the Bible, which is clearly not required. But when I put my faith in the higher power, I also, that's my accountability partner, right? What does my higher power want back from me? What do they expect of me? And so the 10 commandments. Yeah, no, there's actually a great, so if Moses comes down from Mount Sinai and he says, I've got good news and bad news. And you're like, okay, he goes, well, the good news is I got him down to 10. The bad news is adultery is still on there. So, let's see here. So anyway, but the funny thing about the 10 Commandments is, if you look at the 10 Commandments and everybody were to live their life like dead set on the 10 Commandments, we wouldn't need police officers. The whole defund the police thing, it would be no big deal. You wouldn't need police officers anymore if everybody lived by the 10 Commandments. And I came into, up until about 2002, 2003, I was agnostic at best, and I enjoyed aggressively debating believers. I wanted to tear them down and tell them how silly their idea of God was. And I was godless, so I was a real dick about it. But the more what that forced me to do was to think about the arguments that I was making, and to think about, scientifically, because I like to think of myself as somebody that likes science and understands just enough of it to be dangerous. That the farther science had come along, the farther away we had gotten to replicating going from nothing to life, going from a single cell organism to Mozart. So, as I look around at the way that things work together, and then what happens to people when they get in tune with their higher power, and they start living their life through their higher power, and how they change, to me, those are proofs enough that there is something greater, right? If we were relying on ourselves, we wouldn't be in here, right? If we were our own higher power, you think about when you came through the doors of AA, and you look at the people that come through the doors, and most of them don't come through on a winning streak. You're not coming through because everything's going great for you. I wouldn't be here if everything was going great for me and life was giving everything back that I was expecting from it. Bubbly. But the cool thing is, once you're in the rooms for a little while, or you look around at the people that have been in the rooms for a little while, you'll see a lot of winning streaks. And that's what's really cool, is people change their lives. Change life. Yeah. So how much? I could just about... The funny thing is, I thought I was going to be like the substitute teacher that might have 27 minutes. I was either going to have 40 minutes and need 20 more, or be at 27 and be lost, right? School's up. But here's the cool thing. If you're not ready yet for God of the Bible or Creator God, one of the things that's both in the Big Book and the original Big Book, it says God doesn't demand too high a price from those who seek him. So if you want to find God, if you want to find your higher power, he's not waiting in vengeance. He's not waiting, to be the mean, I think most of the people that I hear, they had the Catholic God that was very, very damning and life in hell, right? But he's waiting for you. He's waiting for you to create a relationship with him. But there's a special word in there. We have to seek him. God, since the days of Moses, there haven't been too many people that God's like, this guy's important. I'm going to have to go and talk to this character and tell him what life's all about and communicate with him exactly how I feel. God's not there every day. And how mundane would that be? What would be the point of life if everything was taken care of, if God was your celestial butler, if there was no suffering, if there's no pain, if there's no growth in that, there's no discovery in that. So we do have to seek him through prayer, meditation, just conversing on a daily basis. If we take our lives and begin to reflect his intentions for us, and I know I don't do this perfectly. I'm not even sure if I do it well all the time. I think, those that are close to me can see some changes. But if you do that regularly, it begins to reflect in your character and who you are. And so I've heard that somebody told me about 3 mirrors to the soul. There's the mirror, or the 3 mirrors in our lives. There's the physical mirror that you look at on the wall. There's the mirror of your mind, and that's reflected in your writing. If you'd be surprised, sometimes if you start writing, sometimes you're a clearer thinker than you thought, and sometimes you're not as clear as you thought. But the other mirror, the mirror of our character, is through the people that we attract into our lives. And if you're in touch with your higher power and you're living life right, the people that you're going to attract into your lives, you're going to be a lot more happy sharing secrets with, because those people aren't going to get drunk and go tell crazy stuff about you. They're not going to spread rumors. So anyway, I couldn't be here today without having gotten in touch more with my higher power. And I couldn't do that while I was drinking. Even though I had a belief in God, I didn't have a relationship with God. And it's only through sobriety that I've been able to have the relationship. It's funny, because I only have the relationship because I'm sober, and I'm only sober because I have the relationship. So that's kind of a cool little circle there. But, there's more stuff here, but you know what? A couple little things. Appreciate and be grateful for the little things. If you can find joy in the little things, man, life is happier. So one of my things is happiness is a serious problem, but if you can find ways to be happier, that's going to really help you stay sober and have emotional sobriety. Another one is when nothing is horrific, life is terrific. So my sponsor introduces himself as a grateful alcoholic. And I wasn't sure what that meant when I first got here. And I don't know if this is even what he means by it. But, in looking at the 12 steps and looking at all the people, whether they are addicted to alcohol or drugs or not addicted to anything, there's not a person on the earth that wouldn't be better off if they would go through the 12 steps. The 12 steps can help everybody. So I never would have subjected myself to the 12 steps if I hadn't become, my life wasn't demonstrably unmanageable. And I had no other means of overcoming alcohol than by going through the steps. Alcoholism forced me to attack my life in a way that I never would have otherwise. And so alcohol forced me to do that. And for that, I am grateful. So I probably won't announce myself as a grateful alcoholic at every meeting, but it fits, and I understand it, and there is meaning in that. So, if you work the steps, you do the program, you're strong with your sponsor, the promises come true. I've seen it happening. They haven't all come true for me yet, but I'm waiting for things in my life to change. I'm trying to make things in my life change. Some of them haven't happened yet, but now I have confidence that I know they will. Thanks a lot.